You know, guys, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna admit it. I never thought I'd admit it this season, but I'm gonna do it for y'all. The opening's growing on me for Eminence and Shadow. It kind of is. I'll be honest. It's kind of started to grow on me. And what a perfect episode to do so. Then the episode we've been waiting for. John Smith versus Alpha. There's a lot actually in this episode to go over. There is a lot of information. This is going to be a long video, man. But man, am I so happy to be back in the saddle again for recording, guys. I can't wait. Lots of videos coming soon. Let's just kind of get into this episode of Eminence and Shadow 2. We had a pretty damn fun one today. So without further ado, let's get straight into and talk about Eminence and Shadow, Season 2, Episode 6 today, as we get to one of the hypest scenes in this arc. So our episode begins with a briefing from what has just occurred. An ass whooping from John Smith. As Alpha says, against 3 of the elite numbers. As Gamma says, could he be a new member of the Named Children? But it's here Rose has had enough, as she says, John Smith's skill is leagues above even the most skilled of fighters. It was like he predicted each and every one of our moves. He's as good as the 7 Shadows. I'm begging you to let me face him again, as we see 664 and 665 have to drag her out of the room, because she's still speaking out of turn. As Alpha's just like, oh, these girls are going to kill me. As we hear, there's another problem we're dealing with. I've assigned Zeta to the search for what we discussed. I want to think the fact that she hasn't contacted us means the mission's going smoothly. The cult seems to be putting up some heavy resistance. As Alpha tells her, I hope we can put this all to an end quickly so we can take some time to relax together. As we see that Alpha is stressed right now. But nevertheless, she tells Gamma, we'll send Delta to deal with John Smith. All the Delta fans this season are eating good. And it's here as we transition to our next scene. We see our super spy, John Smith, just chilling, relaxing. But not for long, as we suddenly see Beth Doggo running alongside the train. As she suddenly smashes through the window here, and our battle begins. But our super spy, John Smith, is more than prepared for her. As he's forcing her back with his threads, so she, quite literally, takes the roof off this place. As John says, so you removed my overhead defenses, huh? But it will do you no good. Because now with all this debris flying around, he can use his thread and have it come crashing into Delta here, subduing her. John Smith is playing no games here. And as Delta's sitting there trapped, we hear, the fate of a beast is to crawl along the ground. But as our boy starts monologuing here, something you should never do, obviously, as a villain, Delta starts getting a whiff of him. As she immediately realizes that, your boss! As Sid just looks at her like, God damn it, Delta. And it's here as we transition to our next scene. I love the conversations between these two. They're both so stupid, man. It doesn't get anywhere because they talk past each other all the time. It's like 2 children talking to each other as we hear, so, what brings you here anyway, Delta? As she says, Delta was hunting, and I was hunting John Smith. As she says, boss is John Smith, and Sid says, yep, I totally am. She says, well then I can't beat John Smith then, huh? I'm gonna go report that to Alpha. As Sid's like, whoa, wait a minute. I need you to listen carefully, Delta. I'm in the middle of a hush-hush secret mission. As she says, well, Delta wants to do that too. As Sid says, nope, this is something only I can do, best doggo girl. And you see, if you report to Alpha about John Smith, my hush-hush secret mission will end in failure. As she asks why, and he says, because it won't be a secret anymore. So I need you to not tell anyone. As we see Sid casually laying out next move here? And it's here Delta says, but I'm on a mission for Lady Alpha. As Sid says, no, don't worry, silly girl. I got a new mission for you. You remember the rules of shadow guarding, don't you? Any mission I give you takes priority over anything else. Even a mission from Alpha, the true leader. As Delta's like, Alpha's not gonna get mad? And Sid's like, probably, no, she won't get mad. And it's here Sid adds, you know, when you finish that mission I'm giving you, I'll give you something for a reward. As she gets hyped as hell and says, boss will do anything I want. As Sid says, no, not anything. It has to be something I'm capable of, and it doesn't take much effort, frankly. I'm kind of lazy. But that very clearly did not listen to, or Delta did not listen to that. And it's here as he picks her up and takes her to the window that he strategically destroyed, we hear, alright, what is your mission? As he says, if you keep going straight from here, you'll get to a place called the Lawless City. There's a black tower there where there's a big bad guy named Juggernaut. Go hunt him for me, Delta. As Delta says, Lawless Black Jugga Jungle? As Sid's like, yes, exactly, the Black Jugga Jugga. As we see Alpha or Delta happily go off on her mission. As Sid's just like, you know, something seems off about this. But oh well, it's to save the world. Their conversations really are just like two children talking, guys. But it's here as we transition to our next scene. It's time to get a little serious. As we hear, we found the aftermath of an intense battle. We believe that's when this was cut off. As we see one of Delta's hairpins here. And Alpha is devastated. As Gamma says, that stupid mutt. She was stupid, but she would never have defied an order from you, Lady Alpha. Because it's here, guys. They think Delta's dead. She never reported back because of what Sid did earlier. They think she's dead here. As Alpha says, continue the search. I hope to at least retrieve the body. As we see, she is pissed. But it's here, even after a death. Problems are still occurring, as we hear. The amount of counterfeit bills in circulation is still increasing. And at this rate, the citizens will begin to doubt the value of all paper money. And the wave of demands for redemption will bear down on everyone, including Mitsugoshi. We don't have the assets that will be required to satisfy the predicted demand. We need a plan, and urgently. But it's here, Alpha says. This is what he wanted from the start. This was no shallow attempt to earn a few extra zenny with counterfeit bills. While we were fighting a commerce war, he was sowing the seeds. Seeds to intentionally spark a credit crisis. Bankrupt us both and take everything for himself. As Alpha says, John Smith. As we see her the most heated we ever have. And it's here as we transition to our next scene, we see that John Smith is putting a stranglehold on everyone here. As we hear, the cult is highly concerned about the current state of affairs. If these mysterious counterfeit bills continue to circulate, it will expedite the credit collapse and the cult will suffer severe losses. But it's in this moment, Gettin cuts his head clean off. We don't need comments from the peanut gallery. As he says, John Smith, you say, and he's told, yes, sir, when we attempted to uncover the source of the counterfeit bills. A man calling himself John Smith, the GOAT, stood in our way. As Gettin says, Garter, set up checkpoints. Inspect everything going in and out of the royal capital. As Garter says, sir, we may have a lot of clout, but if we tried that, the royal family would be up our ass. But as Gettin cuts the head off this other man, I think he's playing no games here. As he says, do whatever you must to find the source of those bills, Garter. And it's here as we transition to our next scene. This is a really interesting scene, because I don't remember this from the light novel. At least not from this arc. Because it's here we see Iris runs straight into Alexia, who looks great with glasses, by the way. And it's a little awkward because these two haven't talked that much since the events of season 1 ended. As Iris says, I know there's no school today, but I still didn't expect to see you back at the castle. As Alexia says, well, they still haven't finished building the academy yet, so I thought it might be easier to find specialized books in the palace archives. As we see best girls hard at work reading books on law, politics, engineering, economics, finances. Can't forget about ancient linguistics. As Iris tells her, are you going to give up the sword and become a scholar or something? But it's here Alexia says something really surprising as she says, no, not at all. Rather, this is to help me know where to wield my sword. Since this spring, I've been forced to realize a lot of things. If I just keep swinging my sword around randomly, that's never going to change anything. I'll only ever be an outsider. If I want to wield my sword in a place where it matters, then I have to start by earning the right to stand in that place. And the road to that place sometimes starts in an area where you don't wield a sword. I had to learn that the hard way. And because of that, I don't have the time for anything now. But it's here. Iris can't hear that anymore, as she walks right past her without saying a word. Because again, Iris is a different person after the events of season 1 now. And it's here as we transition to our next scene. Sid's showmanship is so stupid, dude. As we hear, rumors of counterfeit bills are already beginning to spread throughout the royal capital. We believe the royal family will be forced to take action soon. As we see this idiot Sid is just taking notes here for his own plan, like, so that's what Shadow Garden's doing, huh? Interesting. As Beta says, my lord, you're taking notes? And he says, yes, because this will affect the future. My future. As we see that Sid is freezing here because he wants to keep the window open for aesthetic purposes. But as Gamma continues, she says, these circumstances can easily lead to inflation, and it's already reached a point that it must be addressed on a state level. And it's here Sid says, it just doesn't make sense, damn it. As Beta says, did I make a mistake? We'll restart the investigation and analysis right away, sir. As he tells her, no, there's no time. Let's just proceed as we have been, because that'll be easier for my plan. But it's here in this moment. There's one more thing that Beta has to tell him. As she says, to deal with John Smith, we sent Delta after him. And as a result, we've lost all contact with her. We believe she may have been killed in action. I like how Sid's just sitting there contemplating, and all of a sudden he's just like, wait, what? As he starts sweating bullets here, saying, Delta's, you know, merely gone somewhere far away, that's all. As she's like, you're right, my lord, Delta's gone somewhere far away, that's all. Because she thinks that he's in denial right now. So that's why she's acting like this. She thinks that he's in denial and can't accept her death. Like, I know, she is somewhere far away, huh, my lord, it's okay. As she says, John Smith is a considerably skilled fighter. If possible, Lord Shadow, we want you to deal with him. As he says, apologies, but I have matters to attend to. Can't fight myself. But as he tries to leave, Beta says, my lord, as you know, we have a rule that classified documents like your notes must either be destroyed or encrypted without delay. As Shadow says, read it. And she's like, my word, it's such a complex code. As he says, hiragana, katakana, kanji, Arabic numerals, Roman letters. It uses 5 different languages that I developed independently. Because of course he did. As Beta says, I'd love for you to teach me. As Shadow tells her, if you can decipher the meaning of this text, I'll enlighten you on its meaning. As he hands her a piece of paper that would literally solve everything if she reads it. But we have plot to go through, guys. But it's here as we transition to our next scene. We hear Mr. Smith. We are approaching the major corporate alliance checkpoint. As we see, these fools have put barricades down on the tracks, but they easily get smashed through because nothing will stop our boy John Smith. But it's here. We're about to see someone try. As all of a sudden, Alpha jumps out above him and says, "It's a pleasure to meet you, John Smith. Now, goodbye." But we see her attack get blocked by John as we hear an onslaught of decoy threads hiding a few finer threads that will deal real damage, As John says, "You dodged." But I guess that makes sense, as their fight continues on top of the train. And it's here as their fierce fight continues, Alpha starts to realize something as she says, the way he moves, the length of his reach, the dexterity of his techniques. It's almost like, as she sees who she thinks it is, and she's shocked to her core. As she takes a step back and says, "Why? How could you do this, Shadow?" As John says, "I've forsaken that name. Now I'm called John Smith." As we see, Alpha is shocked, but she still says, "What's become of Delta?" As our boy John has to think of something real quick, like, and says, "I sent her to a far-off place." But it's here as her power overflows, Alpha says, "That tells me nothing!" Literally. As for the first time here, we really start to break down Alpha as we hear, "Maybe you can understand it, but it makes no sense to me. I'm not capable of doing the things that you can do. But despite that, I want to support you, to understand you. I want to be there for the man who saved my life. If it would serve you, I would do anything. But does all this mean that you don't need me anymore?" As John says, "Once it's all over, then you'll understand. You'll know that this was the best choice." But as she continues, she tells him, "I won't be like this forever, you know. I won't keep dragging you down." As he actually ties her up here, but she burns the threads away as our fight begins again. As Alpha actually lands a hit on him, a genuine hit. As she says, "I can support you too." But as John catches her sword, he says, "Mist form, huh? A vampire technique. But you still have to solidify to land an actual attack. Yeah, the enemy's attacks won't hit you, but you could just dodge for that. The technique's not enough return for the risk." As he sends Alpha flying here. As she charges at him again, full power this time, but he lands a light kick and a palm strike, not even on her, and sends her flying here. And it's here she's sent flying from the train. We have one last look of John turning his back on her. And as she's left alone, she says, "Come back. Please don't leave me." Now, this is a very sad scene, guys, because Alpha feels like she was abandoned here. She feels like the person who saved her and gave her this brand new world and this goal to live for just abandoned all of them and even killed one of her friends. So right now, she's at her lowest of lows. And I'll be honest, guys, I hate to be this guy. I don't know if they handled this scene that well. Because here's the thing. This is supposed to be one of the biggest scenes in this entire season. This is the scene this season. And it did not hit like I wanted it to, man. I'm a little disappointed with it. It wasn't bad, but it could have been so much more. But nevertheless, it's a very sad scene still. And as we transition to our next scene, we hear, "How do you like it, Mr. Smith? We have exchanged almost all the counterfeit bills for gold." At this point, the coffers of the major corporate alliance may as well be empty. You see, I've been carefully accumulating authentic banknotes. Now all that remains to be done is to cast them where the entire public can see them. And the MCA will be finished. People already feel uneasy keeping paper bills in their possession. The citizens will race each other to redeem their money. The MCA's supply of funds will fail to meet the demand, and they'll be ruined. In no time at all, it'll spread to Mitsugoshi as well. The businesses that have upheld the kingdom's economic activity will fall like dominoes. And the government will be too busy attempting to quell the chaos. That'll be our chance to destroy all the evidence and vanish without a trace. Essentially, everything has gone perfectly for once in this show. Everything's going according to plan. But it's here with everything basically done and their partnership almost over. Yukimi decides to open up a little bit as she says, I believe I've told you before about when I was young and I lived in the village with my mother. Back then, the great hero Shiva had just fallen, and the Therianthrope lands were plunged into a maelstrom of war. The powerful clans were in constant conflict to claim the crown of the great hero. And the weaker clans, like my Spirit Fox clan, were constantly at their mercy. As she explains further, saying, in our quest for survival, we attempted to deepen the ties with the like-minded clans to whom we were allied. The powerful clan of the Great Wolves and the wise clan of the Spirit Foxes. Two were chosen from each in order to marry and strengthen our alliance. Myself, the daughter of the only Spirit Fox to have 3 tails, and the son of the Great Wolves' patriarch, the swordsman Getten. I admired Getten and accepted my appointment with joy, and Getten had affection for me too. My mother and everyone in the village gave us their blessing. It was such a happy time. But as we know all too commonly, happy times don't last forever. As we suddenly hear, strife broke out nearby between 2 great clans. Our village was caught in the crossfire, and just like that, it was destroyed. The wisdom and strength of the lesser clans amounted to nothing more than helplessness, as Yukimi is devastated. And we suddenly hear, I made a proposal to the others. I told them the only way to survive is to accept more power. If we take these pills, they will grant us immense power. We could have stood against the greater clans. But that woman refused. Because of her, they all refused. We could have stopped this before it happened. As Getten tells Yukimi, I did that. I killed her. I had to do it to protect you from this war. The only way to stop them taking from us is to start taking from them. As he tells her, pledge fealty to the cult and accept their power for yourself. But obviously she's not going to accept that from the man who just killed her mother. As he says, you too? You dare reject me? As he cuts her down right here. And as we transition to the daytime, we hear, if I don't take from them, they'll take from me. If I don't take from them, they'll take from me. As we see, he gave Yukimi her scar on her back and left her here to die. But it's here in that moment, all of a sudden, we hear the throes of battle. But we'll come back to that. Because it's here Yukimi says, he took everything from me, leaving me with nothing but an arch nemesis, Getten. I ended up as a prostitute on the battlefield. I needed wealth. I needed power. I used everything I possibly could until I found myself in the lawless city and climbed to the top. As she says, surely you've caught on, Mr. Smith. You know that my true objective is not to build myself a fortune. My real goal is to find Getten and take everything. As she says, I'm going to settle this now. I do hope you will wait for my return, trusting in my success. And as our doors close on our train and she's off, our episode ends. We're steadily heading towards the finale of our arc, guys. I'm thinking probably next week we're going to get it. There's a lot they set up in this episode, actually. I know you guys noticed how in the flashback something seemed to happen right there. We'll get into that next week, I'm sure. But man, I love this episode, guys. I do think it was great, but I wish the Alpha scene had a little more impact. Because that's one of my favorite scenes just in the novels, honestly, in general. And I kind of wish they did it a little better. Just had it feel more emotional like it's supposed to, you know? But it is what it is. I still think they handled it pretty well, and I'm excited for the conclusion of this arc next week. Our next arc, I think you all will love. So let me know your thoughts on this episode down in the comments. I'd love to hear them. But until next time, I hope you all have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces, have a blessed day. Videos, a lot of them, coming soon, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Deuces.